Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon from wherever you're joining the conference. A warm welcome to all of you. And thanks so much for joining us today for this session on building trust in India's data ecosystem. It's an effort to demonstrate the model of change that India has been adopting over the past few years and how it's going to build that trust in the use of data by various stakeholders in the country. Saguti, the Director of Population Council Office in India. So as I said, the panel today will discuss the novel, solution-oriented and dialogue-driven stories around improving data quality. They could include the inspiring story of the technology used in data generation in a large and complex system, the challenges and strategies for data quality in the large-scale surveys, and the evolution of new generation of innovators of efficient and sustainable data systems. We have renowned experts today on the panel who are both practitioners and also the decision drivers in many ways. The panel represents colleagues from government, academia, and donor organization, giving full view of the steps that have been undertaken or can be undertaken to strengthen the data in India. This panel discussion session is divided into 4 rounds. In the first round, each of the panelists will get about 8 to 10 minutes time to share their perspectives on the issue of data quality and the initiatives that they or their institution has undertaken to address the data quality issues. In the second round, the panelists will answer follow-up questions that will be posed from my end. And in the third round, the panelists will answer the questions of the audience. So I encourage all the participants to please type your questions in the chat box that's in the bottom of your screen. In the final round, I will then request the panelists to give concluding remarks in just 1 to 2 minutes. So it's going to be a quite exciting discussion, and I'm really looking forward to learn from the perspectives that different experts are going to offer today. So as a first batsman in this panel discussion, let me invite Mr. Arindam Modak, who is the Deputy Director General at the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. He works closely with the Secretary MOSPI on innovations and improving the data ecosystem in the country. Especially, we all know that how the statistical system of the country is quite strong, and there are many efforts as the evolution that is taking place in terms of how the data is generated, collected, used, and at what time points. So in fact, I must say that he has been instrumental in designing and implementing the digitization of survey processes with an eye to improve. Without much further ado, may I request Mr. Arindam Modak to share his perspectives on what's happening and what is the way forward for India's statistical system. Over to you, Mr. Arindam.
Thank you. Thank you, Niranjanji. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Let me share the screen, please. So, Minister of Statistics and PI, Program Implementation, is carrying out 3 major service schemes for the last 70 years. We have been operating since 1950. So, NSSO and CSO were the major 2 wings of this ministry. NSSO has been covering the survey mainly in 3 sectors. The social sectors were surveys which are presently covered is BLFS, HCS, the health survey, the chain-based consumer expenditure survey, price collections, etc. The industrial sector survey is mainly represented by the annual survey of industry, which happens every year, popularly called as IPC. And the agricultural statistics is being carried out for the area enumeration and the crop in data. Now, these three surveys, the last two are mainly record-based. Why I say record-based is annual survey of industry is being done, it's through a collection of statistics act, and we are, validating it with against the balance sheet and the profit and loss accounts. And the agricultural statistics is mainly based on the rural through the Patwari register and the crop cutting experiments that NSS has been monitoring over the years. But the social sector statistics survey which have been carried out are mostly perception based, because these are mostly household surveys and some are enterprise surveys also. But in the household survey, we have a concepts of going to the field, we have to go to the households. There is a very detailed designing in the NSS. There is a huge number of samples. We cover around 150,000 samples all over the country, covering almost all the 700 districts. And this has been mainly perception based because this is mostly investigator and respondent type of survey. Now, since we are collecting this, doing this survey for the last 70 years, we have a lot of evolutions over the time. But when at the end of the day, we require data. So whenever we are having data, the essence of data quality often comes and it has to be there. Now, data quality has two angles, timely data and reliable data. Now, for timely data, definitely data has to be timely, because if we don't get a timely data, data has no acceptance. For example, if the lunch is being served at 5 o'clock in the evening, so lunch has no meaning. Similarly, if the dinner is served at 1 o'clock at night, so dinner has no meaning. So we have to give the dinner and lunch in due time. Similarly, for data also, if we can't give it in time, the data loses its relevance. So we have to concentrate on the timeliness. Some of the surveys which are record-based are often we try to give a timely data for ASI, for agricultural data. For socioeconomic surveys also, we are in the path of making timeliness, but what happens initial days, we don't have that technology. So there was a data lag of there was a lag in field movement, there is a lag in manual entry. So there was a lag. So to improve timeliness, the main two aspects that ministry harp upon is fast data processing and use of technology to make release of data and indicators in time. And reliability. When we give a timely data, the user's attention diverts into the reliability. So we concentrate equally on the reliability aspect. So for reliability aspect, several issues which helps to helps to deliver on the issue are one should have a simple schedule. We should not be too ambitious with survey data. Why I am saying this, at times we have faced that the questionnaires is so complex and at times so questionable to the maybe sometimes we are putting such questionnaires for which extracting data from field is almost near impossible. So we should not be too ambitious with the survey data. We should understand what is the socio-economic condition of the area and may devise a questionnaire in that way. Honor the respondent time involvement. We can't keep a respondent attached with us for 2 hours or 3 hours. So we have to honor that everybody is busy. Everybody have their own private space. So 2-3 hours time nobody will give. So 15 minutes, half an hour respondent time, if it is given, I hope questionnaire has to, if the questionnaire is made in that perspective, it serves to give a good data. Don't collect survey data matching with administrative data. This is also nowadays very important. It is, one may think that where administrative data is already available, if you collect the survey data, there are bound to be queries because it may not match in most of the time because purpose and modalities of these two processes are different. So survey data administrative data will not match. I will not say may not match, because and that may raise queries, that may raise apprehensions about the data quality that you are doing through survey data. And obviously, use of technology at every stage to reduce post-survey data cleaning time. So storyline of MOSPI yesterday, there was a complex schedules. Design was very complex. It was a paper questionnaire. Manual data entry was there. So whenever the survey is being done in the fields, in the different terrains, it comes to the centralized office for data entry. Now that is manual data entry, so you have to check whether the data entry is done. So it eats up the time. And there was a 3 years lag almost in the data release. I'm telling this, it was a story some 10-15 years back. Now today, MOSPI, Minister of Statistics, is harping on simpler schedules. We introduced CAPI and CAVI, wave interview and computer-assisted personal interview. eSigma is a e-survey instrument for generalized multimodal application. A survey solution is being for fieldwork and data processing is being developed to revolutionize the survey ecosystem in Government of India, and time lag reduced to near real time. Now, telling this, I think I should decode eSigma a bit more details. It is bundled by interlinking some 11 crucial independent modules of the survey process. My last 20 years experience of the field, I found that many of the things are being maybe sorted out if we can use technology in a very intelligent way, inside the field. Main features: it is a menu-driven survey to ensure a better ambience for interview, no more paper. Data validation, starting from the collection stage. There are other stages of data validation, definitely after the survey fieldwork is over. Eliminating the scope of poor quality data being collected, definitely it is there. Real-time data validation is the most important aspect, that helps us not only to ensure reliability but also to improve timeliness. And it is a full-fledged use of ICT tools for cleaning of data. I must admit at this test that some 3 of our most very important survey are already launched and going on at a very much a pilot stage for doing the field work and processing the data. Definitely the essence and effects what we will get of this will be coming up in the next calendar year. So eSigma is having a real-time data validation, reduced time lag, paradata collected to record the lat long and audit trail, validate paradata to ensure data integrity. In fact, that is a major point for getting good data from field. You attach paradata with the collection mode so that you ensure the investigators, I am not questioning their presence in the field, but you are ensuring the presence in the field in the real-time basis. So better the paradata, you get a better quality, you have a scope to get better quality of data. Using modern tools for post-survey data processing, questionnaires are being made simpler and short. So these are the points which hopefully will ensure data quality. The steps from survey design to release of final data are transparent, and release of RSC to ensure stakeholders confidence. In NSS, we do issue the reports, release the social sector survey reports, along with the indicators, major indicators, we issue the relative standard error also, which helps to give the stakeholders confidence. Because at the end of the day, who says the data is good? When we are taking a food, we judge the food by taking the food, the quality of the food, the hygiene of the food. Same thing for data. The user is the best and only judge who will tell whether the data is good or not good. So if the user is happy, the user is satisfied with the data, we will say that is the only parameter of getting ensuring data quality. So you have to get users confidence, we have to release what is the level of error in the data also. So that's all.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to hear, Arindam, the kind of innovation that is taking place within MOSPI and the revolution that you're all doing in the survey data processing. And also, I believe this is going to be something, a guidance to all the data that's collected by various ministries in India, and we'll talk more about it a little later. Now, let me introduce our second panelist in the session, Dr. Vishnu Vardhan Rao, who needs no introduction because he's well known and has been in the limelight for launching the National Data Quality Forum from ICMR. Yeah, but for the purpose of the introduction, he's a trained mathematical statistician and data enthusiast come scientist. He has nearly 3 decades of experience in health, nutrition, and bioinformatics, both as a scientist at the National Institute of Nutrition and as well in Hyderabad, as well as the current director of ICMR, National Institute of Medical Statistics. Dr. Rao has published more than 100 papers in national and international journals and received several awards. Dr. Rao, I would say that he's a dreamer, dreaming about the data and putting together this technology more from the perspective of artificial intelligence and machine learning. How do those kind of methods can actually help address the data quality issues? So without much further ado, may I request Dr. Vishnu to please go ahead and share your screen to present your perspective. Over to you.
Is it visible, sir?
Yes, sir. We can see you. Can you put it
Thank
in
you, Dr.
PowerPoint mode?
Niranjan, for
Can
those
you
kind
please-
words. Pardon me?
Can you put it in PowerPoint slide mode, sir? Yeah.
Is it? Has it come or not?
Not yet.
Okay.
Can you try again?
Sorry, something wrong.
Should
Yes.
I share?
No, it
screen?
is done. It will be done. Sharing, I'm not able to.
No, I can't see the presentations.
Has it been shared?
Yeah, well, I can see now. Can you please put it in slide mode?
I did put, I don't know why it is not. Can you share, Dr. Niranjan, otherwise?
Yeah, sure. Happy to
Sorry
do
for
that.
it. Sorry for this. In the meantime, thank you, Dr. Niranjan, for those kind words.
We are not able to see.
Sir, I'm just sharing the screen.
Okay, man. Fine.
Before that, I
Fine.
don't want to waste the time, and I want to address the people. Dr. Niranjan, thank you, and my co-speakers, as well as ma'am, thank you for this session. And I think
Can you see it?
yes, now we can. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. It was wonderful presentation. Before that MOSFET is the biggest data collecting agent, organization, and huge data has been generated by MOSFET. And the points are very pertinent, and a lot of work has been done in terms of data quality there. So, as part of the ICMR NIMS work and with the collaboration with the Population Council and supported by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So we had just started our journey 2 years back with just walk and talk kind of a discussion, and which has been implemented and materialized in the form of National Data Quality Guidelines. I just go through and next slide, sir. Yeah, okay, just for the sake of the information, anyone who has analyzed real data knows that the majority of their time on data analysis project will be spent mostly cleaning the data before doing any analysis. Common wisdom puts the extent of this at around 60 to 95% of the total project effort, and suggests that between 1 and 10% of data items in critical organizational databases are estimated to be inaccurate. So that is through a reference. Next, please. So again, I will tell you the Fisher, a famous British statistician, said that you know that all of them. The first task of a statistician is to conduct the cross-examination of the data of meaningful analysis of data and interpretation of the results. Next, sir. You all know that India is a big data ecosystem. Now, my presenter, Dr. Mandal also told about this. We have rich sources of the data is a new oil now. So probably 50 years back, how the Gulf countries rose from camel to Cadillac car. Now the data is the real oil. So now India is the data-rich ecosystem, and now India has the capacity to what you call rise to the occasion of the data and get more and more benefits out of the data. We have a lot of data ecosystem consisting of facility system related data, survey statistics, health and agriculture, special surveys, NSS for data, and the large scale surveys IIPS does, NFHS, MICS, CNNS, LOSI, and also CRS system, SRS system, decadal census data, enormous number of sources of data has been generated. Even, for example, if we take the ICMR, the 27 institutes generate huge amount of data and on health and nutrition. Thank you. Next, please. So why the guidelines are needed? So it is data collection related, whether data related or the system related. So these are the three aspects which we deal with for the guidelines, whatever we require. Next, please. So in keeping that in view, NDQF as National Data Quality Forum, which is a compendium of many experts, many organizations, and with the Population Council, NIMS, and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, we came together and formed a National Data Quality Forum. The goal is deepening interest on the importance of good quality data among both the producers and as well as the consumers, educating consumers to demand data of good quality. Next, please. So it is a partnership model. It's therefore we have a partnership with, for example, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, RGI, International Institute of Population Sciences, technical partners like NCAR. Actually, NCR, we had a very good interaction with NCR. Now, with the ma'am's take over as a Director General, we also wanted to meet her to have the interaction and collaboration. Niti Aayog, we have National Statistics Office, MOSPI. So therefore, this is the kind of a partnership model. Next, please. So we have a kind of a statistical system, for example, working with MOSPI and DPID for the technical support of analytical support or capacity building. And we have the sustainable dialogue on data quality, for example, giving conferences, seminars, webinars, blogs, infographics, newsletters, which have been continuously doing this on data quality. Quality of health surveys for data quality analytics. For example, we have collaboration with the IAPS Mumbai, which is, the NFHS 5 is their latest popular and everyone knows about that. Data quality assurance protocol review. And also we are very closely collaborating with HIMS for technological solutions, validation checks, and behavioral interactions. And our two staff are and doing all these three aspects. Next, sir. So therefore, why data quality guidelines? So we have three aspects of data quality issues. One is before the survey, and during the survey, and while analyzing the data. So these are the three aspects of data quality issues which we can. So how to deal with before survey, how to deal with during the survey, how to deal with analytical time. These are the things which we have concentrated and we created the data quality guidelines, how and when the guidelines to be applied so that you will get a quality data. I don't say it is 100%, but minimum error data so that your analytical, whatever you do the analysis will be robust and interpretable. So for that we have the identity, prioritization, evaluation, and as well as the correctness of these 4 steps we have followed. Next step. So for the information of the members, the National Data Quality Guidelines were launched on 24th July 2019 by our Secretary DHR and DGISMR, Professor Dr. Balram Bhargava, and Professor Paul, who is NITI Aayog member. So they both inaugurated the National Quality Guidelines, and exactly after 2 years, we have released them. Next, please. So National Data Quality Guidelines, what we have done so far. With the survey data, what we have done? With the survey data, the VK Paul and Professor Balram Bhargava released National Data Quality Guidelines in July 2021. Training workshops and guidelines are being conducted all over India, but we have completed the first initial training of trainers recently, and we are continuing that. And with administrative data, and we are working with HIMS division, and a data validation tool was developed to use at a facility, district, and state levels for early identification of the internal consistencies, and develop potential human-centric design-based solutions for strengthening the data reporting and entry, and triangulating the MIS system data with the regular health reporting data to understand the data quality. And we also developing a case studies of HIMS as a kind of a coffee table book, which is we are about to complete that, which is coming as a case study coffee table book. And also, we are also trying to educate the consumers to demand data for good quality, like conduct regular webinars and panel discussions, publish briefs, infographics, and access to literature through exclusive data quality libraries. So these are the things which are giving to promote the data quality guidelines, data quality issues. Next slide. Therefore, government's commitment to produce a high quality data. One, high-level government officials from various ministries from the steering committee of NDQF consists of all the officials of various government departments and also NGOs. So to represent the different varieties of data which they collect, so that the process for the data quality guidelines is a kind of a huge heterogeneous data, so that we can create good quality data guidelines. Key government officials were present in important events of the NDQF, effectively working with HIMS division with full support from the highest authority, secretary level exchange of letters, whatever happened, and we are doing it. NDQF supports development of MASP's e-Sigma digital platform for collecting routine survey data, works closely with the data quality assurance division of MASP. And also, as you all know that ICMR during the COVID-19 and ICMR are very synonymous, you all know that. And we are collecting massive amount of high quality data on COVID-19 patients. For example, tests, vaccinations, application of quality digital system, significant lessons learned on importance of good quality data. Almost, you all know that 100 crores of vaccines are being given. Everything, our data is with us. So we are also trying to apply our data quality checks wherever is possible, because COVID-19 doesn't give you much time of, so it has to be done very quickly. So we are also thinking the post data data quality checks, so that to understand how the data is. Next step. Next. Therefore, what are the steps ahead? So institutions that produce data should be included in data quality as part of their mission statement. Need to inculcate the culture of good quality data in institutions by motivating staff to adopt best practices in data quality, which we are trying in the HIMS as a behavioral change now, which will come as a report soon. Need to institute a data quality management structure at the institute for continuously guide and monitor data collection work for quality assurance. Need to think of system approval for each data collection project to obtain from a high-level review committee in line of ethics committee. Just like ethics committee, we also should have the data quality guidelines committee to review how the data has been collected, how the data has been analyzed. Next step. Next slide, please. So, as I was telling you, it was released in 2021 July. The National Guidelines for Data Quality in Surveys. This is the book, and which is available in the NDQF website, and also hard copies are available. And probably will some of you who are interested, we can also send you by post. So the guidelines consist of number one, it aims to provide a framework, identify data quality issues and tease out solutions. In the second step, it will benefit demographic, health, nutrition, and allied survey, apart from profiting the society in general and scientists in particular. It outlines the functions of data quality assurance system that maintains transparency, credibility, accuracy, and also consistency. Also, it provides a set of protocols for surveys with an overall aim to improve and maintain data quality in varied settings as per need of the users. Next slide, please. Thank you very much for our patient hearing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vishnu, for this wonderful perspective on the data quality issues and also explaining how or what role the National Data Quality Forum is playing. It's quite heartening to see the balanced element of the preparing the national guidelines on data quality for surveys, for survey data quality improvement, and at the same time working with administrative systems. Because both if we need to build a data ecosystem, it's very critical that we work with both the systems of data. Thanks once again. And now let me quickly introduce another colleague who is well respected in the field. And I personally actually read a lot of her papers and writings, and is none other than Dr. Sonalde Desai. He's a professor and director at NCAER National Data Innovation Center and a professor of sociology at the University of Maryland. She is a renowned demographer and deals primarily with human development in developing countries, focusing on gender and class inequalities. At present, Sonalde Desai is leading the India Human Development Survey, India's only nationally representative panel study. The IHDS is used by over 9,000 users worldwide and has led to nearly 500 papers and dissertations. Dr. Desai is a part of the Population and Development Review Editorial Committee and has been a member of multiple editorial boards of both India and international journals. She's also the president of the American Population Association, and we are honored to have her speak about the global data quality discourse today. Over to you, Dr. Sonal. You are on mute if you're speaking.
Sorry, hopefully I'm unmuted now and you can see my screen. Let me maximize it.
Yes.
Does this look okay, Niranjan?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. The first thing I want to do is thank both Mr. Modak and Dr. Rao for laying out the kind of wonderful steps that are being taken. This is such a challenging issue and challenging environment, and addressing large data collection systems requires a variety of perspectives and a variety of inputs. And where my colleagues at NCER National Data Innovation Center come is we kind of work more around small scale design issues on the ground. Our hope is that some of the findings that we have might feed in to the kind of innovations that both of you are undertaking. We're not very good at talking about what we are doing, so I'm going to try and just show you what we do in terms of some of our results. I'm going to focus largely on interviewer errors and data falsification. We kind of tend to think that reducing data collection errors is simply a matter of cracking the whip and making sure that interviewers do what they're supposed to do. We have used so many different terms for falsifying data, like non-sampling error, and the late Praveen Visaria used to talk about people tree effect. But what I'd like to show is that a lot of factors go into poor data quality, and it's not simply the falsification on the part of the interviewer. Let me give you a couple of examples from US. One is that there is the way we word our questions will change the results. So there were opinion surveys would ask, whether you believe that global warming is real. Then only 44% of the Republicans said, oh, global warming is real. Okay. Whereas once this asked question about whether there is climate change is real, 60% said it's real. So it depends on what question you ask and what is the popular perception. Similarly, the question was, should communists be allowed to speak in public spaces in the United States? And 50% say they should not be allowed. And the question B says, should communists be forbidden to speak in public places in the United States? And only 20% say that they should be forbidden, because it's sort of these two different mindsets. One is allowing them, and the other is sort of going back to the mindset of can we as a democracy forbid somebody from speaking? Okay, so the way we ask questions makes a difference. The other area where it makes the difference is the kind of response options that we give. So there were questions around, how much TV do you watch daily? And where the response option was the maximum 2.5 hours, very few people said that they watch 2.5 hours. Where the response option sort of went from 2.5 to 3, 3 to 3.5, and so on, a large percentage of people said that they watch at least 2.5 hours of TV. So response options also make a difference. So I think one of the things that to sort of just show you the kind of work that my colleagues have been doing at NCER, the two areas in which we have been focusing was, one, on design of survey questions, and second, on execution of survey questions. In terms of design, we are trying to figure out how can we find a meeting point between what the researchers want to know and how the respondents think. In terms of execution, we have been looking at how can we ensure that surveys are administered in a way that are designed to minimize the interviewer and situational error. Let me give some examples. I think many of you would remember this as this very famous optical illusion. Some people see in this picture an old woman, and some people see in this picture a young woman. And I think that's kind of the issue that we often seem to face in survey research, where we think we are asking something and the respondents perceive that we are asking something very differently. And it actually has a tremendous impact on some of the outcomes that are of great interest to public policy. Let me give an example here. Women's work is often not seen as real work by both women and their families. So the estimates of women's work depend on the way the questions are phrased. Here, what we had done was we had interviewed the same individuals. We asked them one set of questions at the beginning of the interview, and then we probed in detail later on. And the two sets of responses give you very different answer on the proportion of women who are classified as working, though there is very little impact on men's work. The first set of questions is sort of similar to NSS type questions. What was your primary activity status over the past 12 months? And then for people involved in domestic duties, there was a question of, was there any other activity that you engaged in for a period of at least 30 days? Later on in the questionnaire, we kind of go and ask them, do you have a farm? Did you work on the family farm? Do you own any livestock? Did you help take care of the livestock? And so on. And if you look at the results, what you'll see is that the first set of questions, what we call status-based questions, give you about 27% of work participation rate for women. The activity-based questions, where we specifically asked, did you do this, okay? That gives you about 38% work participation rate for women. Moreover, this difference is just for women and not for men. So what we would like to suggest is the way we phrase questions makes a difference. And perhaps this issue might be something we would want to think about as we discuss the declining female labor force participation rates in India. In order to minimize the mismatch between the way we think and the way our respondent thinks, I think we need to have a clarity on our part in terms of what we want to know. We need to understand the respondent's perspective. And then we need to improve the design in such a way that we rely minimally on subjective interpretations so that it can be administered in large surveys. And we need to keep in mind cultural and regional diversity of India. So the questionnaire design and experiments around those questionnaire design is one of the things that we are focusing on. On the interviewer front, to paraphrase Abigail Adams, all interviewers will cut corners if they can. Okay? But we can reduce their cutting corners if we can help them through better training and support before we start cracking the whip. Okay? One of the things that we did was we have panel survey that was collected in 2004-5 and 2011-12. India Human Development Survey, which interviews the same individuals, same mothers. Okay? So you would think that birth histories up through 2004-5 would look the same for the two interviews because the births that took place can't go away. Okay? Turns out that actually when we compared the second set of birth history with the first set of birth history, we found that 2.5% of the births that took place in the first round were omitted in the second round. And if you don't think 2.5% looks very large, just think about how much omission might have already taken place even during our first wave of interview. Okay, so this is just an underestimate. Okay. Now, who are the children who were omitted? Well, most of them were children who had died. 38% of the boys had been dead at the first interview. By the second interview, the mother didn't even want to mention them and they were just ignored. Okay, 35% of the girls had died, and those were the infant deaths that were then not reported as births at all in the second set of interview. But additionally, there were about 20% of the girls who were alive at the wave 1, but not reported as part of the birth history in the second interview. Okay, and we don't see that kind of a difference for boys. Okay, I think that what happened mostly was that the daughters who were married off were then sort of left out of the birth history. The interviewer didn't see them, they didn't probe, whatever happened. Mothers maybe didn't want to talk about them. The question that I have is, what does it do, this kind of an omission do to our estimates of TFR, IMR, and sex ratio? Okay. And I am going to show you in a few minutes that this might be particularly relevant for some subgroups, such as scheduled tribes. So the next thing we did was, we tried to do multivariate analysis to see, what are the characteristics of these births that were omitted. Okay. And as I noted, married out girls were much more likely to be omitted. So if we want to sort of make sure that this error is reduced, then what we might want to do is we might want to design our questionnaires in such a way that is more probing for older mothers. We train our interviewers. We ask them to specifically ask about married daughters to make sure that they are included. Second thing we found was that Adivasi births were about 44% more likely to be omitted than births in any other category. Okay. And I should say that somewhere else, I have also found that scheduled tribe data, there are many more challenges to scheduled tribe data in many other questions. So I think one of the things we might want to do is spend a little more time per interview in Adivasi areas. We might want to alert the interviewers that this is a likelihood, okay? And so that they pay special attention there. The next thing we found was, and this is actually quite interesting, okay? Because we in survey research world have this great belief that the more time you spend in a household, the worse quality your data is going to be, less respondent cooperation is likely to be. What we found that was that the households in which more than one woman was interviewed were actually the households where there was much less missing data, about 12% less lower likelihood of live births being omitted. And I think what happens there is that the interviewer is spending a much longer time in the household. They get to talking. Other members of the household start pitching in. So you interview one sister-in-law, she talks about her own birth history. And when the second sister-in-law is being interviewed, she already knows what the questions are coming. The other sister-in-law is sort of pitching in and so on. But this was the result that I found quite surprising. Okay. The next thing we found was that we were trying to look at the effect of interviewers. Okay. How long the interviewer had worked, how many interviewers he or she had, or actually she in this case, had conducted, and so on. And what we find is that after the initial learning curve, the missing births seem to increase with the number of interviews carried out by any interviewer. Again, this is quite counterintuitive, right? You would think that, you know, the longer the person has been working, the more experienced they are, the better job they are going to do. Okay. But I suspect one of the things that happens is that the fieldwork fatigue starts setting in. Okay. And so we might want to think about, you know, how to reduce interviewer fatigue by providing leave, rotating interviewers, and so on. Okay. The final thing that we looked at was what are the other interview characteristics that might make a difference to the greater or lower quantity of missing data. And what we found that interviewers who entered things like, I don't know, or missing for date of birth for any of the children were also more likely to have shorter birth histories and omit some of the births. So I think that this is something that we can control in real time. We can count up things like how many don't knows and refusals that an interviewer has, and see if these are the people who are cutting corners, and either supervise them more carefully, retrain them, let them know that, you know, we think that you have just too much missing data, and maybe what is going on. So I think this is again the kind of work that we have been trying to do. Identify conditions under which data quality is compromised, and then think about what can be done to improve it. I do want to sort of point out that I've done plenty of interviewing myself, and I have a lot of sympathy for interviewers. You know, they are working under very difficult conditions, difficult health conditions, personal conditions. For us to think through how we can support them and under what conditions they would need support is something that's very important. So I think what we might want to do is, yes, we need to use technology, we need to use research to improve the data quality, supervision, refresher training, and so on. But we need to work at it in such a way that we set up the interview structure for success. One of the terms that often gets used nowadays is responsive design, and I think that's something we might want to think about. That, you know, you sort of respond to the field condition and specific types of respondents, such as the Adivasis that I identified, to make sure that there is greater leeway in terms of quota, timing, arrangements for the interviewers who are working in difficult situations. We may also want to provide targeted supervision in areas where mistakes and falsification occurs. We need to catch errors in real time and retrain interviewers, and let go some interviewers who are unable or unwilling to perform better. And at the least, we need to have some quantification of errors so that the results can be interpreted sensibly. And I know this is sort of a questionable thing because, you know, all of us as data producers, and I count myself in a category of data producer, are very leery of admitting that there can be any error in our data. Okay, but I think identifying, recognizing, quantifying actually would free us up in a way where we can interpret our data in a sensible fashion, and, you know, teach our users to live with the fact that it's an imperfect activity we are engaging in, and we are all doing our best. The final pitch I actually want to make, okay, is that I think we need more focus on research on data quality and methodology. There was a time when wonderful research on survey design and data collection was coming out of ISI Kolkata, when an NSS group sitting in ISI Kolkata. It has been a while since that, and we tend not to do much methodological research. But this is definitely an area that needs substantive attention. I also think that the execution aspect that both Mr. Modak and Mr. Rao sort of talked about is very important, and technologically enabled supervision is possible and important, but it also requires better understanding of drivers of poor data quality. Okay? I think we need to move beyond stereotypes of I'm going to catch this interviewer cheating, okay, and rather think about how can we identify errors, difficult situations, gather empirical evidence on it, so that we can actually put in place a positive, high quality data collection enterprise. With this, I will end. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Dr. Sonal. It's always wonderful to hear you speak about the experiences from the field. I think you rightly said, it's more about that methodological work that is currently lacking. We are trying to solve on the issues of the operationalizing the whole system, but what about those key critical elements in the data? On what question are we asking? Are we making sense to the respondent? And very nicely put in. Yeah. So, and we'll have more discussion around it later. Let me quickly go to Professor James, who needs, again, no introduction. He's the Director of International Institute for Population Sciences and has done wonderful work. He wrote articles on data quality on the previous rounds of NFHS survey, which many of us use. And also that he has published a lot on the demographic transition and demographic dividend in high impact journals. We are very keen to hear from his perspectives and what the quality issues are and what is the way forward if we need to continue this work, because it's a long-term game, as each of the presenters are saying. Over to you, Professor James.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Niranjan, and also to you as well as to the Population Council for organizing this session. I think it is such a wonderful session, and also we heard from the three previous speakers, really has been so insightful. So I'm only adding a bit on this because maybe some overlapping with what Dr. Sonalde has already spoken, but it's also I'm primarily speaking in the context of National Family Health Survey, because since we have been doing that, I thought it is better to take examples from that and then proceed. So let me also tell you what is the reality in this world first, or in India first, because whatever we say, whatever we imagine, but my own feeling is that importance of data from the household sample survey will be very important for the policy making and program monitoring in this country. Perhaps we may not like it. We would like to have more reliable data from CRS. We would like to have more reliable data from administrative statistics. We would like to have reliable data routinely coming from other systems, but perhaps not immediate. So since the data is going to be, the sample survey data is going to be the data which will be used for in India, with sample size increasing like NFHS, what's happening, the need for data at the small administrative unit from in many contexts, especially in the population and health area, the question we need to ask, all of us need to ask unitedly, how do we ensure this quality of the data? I think that is an issue which confronts all of us. So let me just tell you on the quality aspects, because I'm really not much worried or bothered about the sampling errors now, because that can be estimated. We know the confidence interval in our estimates, and also now with these sampling techniques, etc., we can really go to a level where we can really minimize our errors in sampling part. But the question is, with the increasing sample size, with the difficult questions to ask, especially in the case of population and health surveys, how do we really control the non-sampling errors? That is what the major focus of my presentation. And we know that there are non-sampling errors, and we also know how to address them to some extent, but at the same time, we also know that there are serious issues in addressing them. So let me come to it's sort of a two division in the questionnaire, because if you really look at the NFHS questionnaire, or typical any questionnaire which is from the population and health front, we need primarily two sets of information, I will say. One set of information is something which we the demographers or the population scientist or anyone which has critical elements of age and period effect. Because it means that, if you know the age, we know the year, that is very, very important. If you want to estimate immunization, if you want to estimate antenatal care, if you want to estimate birth rate, everything has a period effect. The period should be known, or it should have some age part of it. So these two are very, very critical for any estimation of any traditional indicators as far as population and health indicators are concerned. We have also other type of questions now, which is asked largely in NFHS, etc. We want to know much more than that. We want several questions on sexuality. We have several questions on violence against women. We have several questions on other critical aspects which are sensitive. The information is very difficult to get. Some people say, why do you ask these questions in a large scale surveys? All these questions arise. So let us also see how do we address that questions. And there is also a large question asked. There are interviewers bias. There is an agency bias in the case of NFHS because we have different agencies that. What is this third set of questions we need to really address? And also, Dr. Sonalde has already told about the questionnaire part, questionnaire length. It can be other related issues. All those things are another set of issues which we really need to address. So let me come one by one very quickly because I have been given only 8 minutes. So what we do with these traditional measures, but that is what I was telling, the question of how do you really ensure that there is a high quality data on age, high quality data on the period part, so that we can give estimates of many of our health demographic indicators with certain level of reliability. That is what, perhaps, we have been quite successful in that. If you really look at the measures which has been developed in that, demographers start with measures on computing the problems with the age data. We know that measures, how do you really address them? How do we smoothen them? All those things are known, even if we collect a low quality data. We also know how to really address them because field level also there are different levels of monitoring system we have worked out now really to ensure that our period capture as well as the age capture is sort of reliable. We also have been fairly succeeded in that simply because the respondents' quality is also increasing because we know that education is increasing. Naturally, we get much reliable data on many of these areas now compared to other period because earlier the major issue in a survey, especially in NFHS survey, to estimate the fertility rate was that because of the Potter effect, we say the period, the births in a birth cohort analysis, the latest birth will be much less than the previous birth. So naturally, we will get less birth rate in the recent periods, which are all perhaps not very serious at this time. So we have also developed various monitoring tools. That way we are quite successful in that. But what were about the sensitive question? That is what the major problem which we ask. So there are several groups of people even ask this question, why should NFHS ask these questions in a large scale survey? Is it really reliable or is it really important to ask these kinds of sensitive questions? But there are a lot of demand for it. You know that violence against women is always demanded. Sexual life, there are no data in the country. So naturally, there are a lot of demand for that data. Household decision. There are so many other things which has no effect on period, which has no effect on, less effect on period, which is less effect on the age, but we need to really capture this sensitive information. So what should we do? Because the problem with this data, and I think I fully agree with Sonali that although we developed a real good monitoring tools or real good ways of framework to really find out age and period data problems, but we don't have that kind of a monitoring tools really to understand what about the quality levels of quality in these areas. That is really, we really need to develop. But we know that interviews effect, we were looking at several the analysis. Although many people say agency is a real problem in the NFHS data, but we always found that agency effect is much less than compared to interviewer effect. Interviewer is because there are a lot of quality differences across interviewers, and especially in the case of sensitive data, we know that there are problems. There has been an excellent paper recently by Abhishek and Fred Arnold, etc., which is really looking at that, and they found that in the case of the sensitive questions, then we can also identify those interviewers who was really making, because there is a deviant analysis which you have done, which are the interviewers really slightly deviant from the normal interviewers, and found that those people's answering of the questions for the sensitive questions are much less reliable than the normal interviewer. It means that for these questions we need to have a different strategy. We need to have a strategy that in the interviewer should be a specific set of interviewers who has to be trained perhaps differently, and so on and so forth. So perhaps, we have addressed several other issues. We can, because length of the questionnaire has been always been cited, because in a huge survey like NFHS with thousands of questions, hundreds of questions, whether do you need to ask these questions? But we were able to address that by modular approach. We say we don't ask these questions to all the women. We asked only a selected number of women so that the burden of the interviewers, etc., is reduced. Those kinds of methods we can adopt, but at the same time, these interviewers appears to need to be different from the other interviewers. There are technological solutions to it, but we need to really innovate on that, which we are still very poor. We need to really admit. So what do we have to do with ensuring quality? I think I will just summarize by telling some of these points which NFHS. I think we have a larger scope for the technology, which NSSO has already told by the previous speaker, and also the other IHDS surveys, or NFHS has been now really depending on the quality of the data using technology, because now we are able to monitor each investigator by sitting at the Mumbai IIPS. We know what is their behaviors, what are they doing each, because we get the information right away. We are also able to tell them by what is called some methods to inform them that, you are making mistake in this, all this. There is a query system in this machine so that we can give queries to them. All those things are really possible. Now, I think from the NFHS 6 onwards, which we are going to launch for the couple of years later, we will also be recording some of the interviewers, which means that the interviewers will not be able to, they have a bad way of asking questions, which we can also monitor by sitting at the place. So these are all possible. Technology gives you a very big lot of opportunities now. But at the same time, we have also need to develop appropriate sampling design, perhaps, because of the length of the questionnaire, which NFHS were able to do to some extent. Perhaps we can really extend it. We also need to, as I told you, again, the training part needs to be extended, because training cannot be same for every interviewer, because there are questions which are sensitive, questions which are difficult, which we need to capture information, cannot actually consider every interviewer should be same. So we need to really train them differently. It is very important. And multi-layer monitoring system using technology is possible. We really can adopt. And then actually, because NFHS usually adopt a very strict system of compulsory revisit and back checks, which are all very necessary for the ensuring quality in the coming years. So what is the way forward? I think I have already mentioned many of these things. I don't need to really go further into it, because there is time is also limited. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Professor James. And I totally agree. I think there are many things that we need to do when it comes to monitoring and improving the large-scale surveys like NFHS. It's a huge survey, the world's largest survey, I would say, which I think in a way requires steps not on many elements. And you have rightly presented what those steps that one needs to take, and these are the lessons that could be really helpful. So let me now go to Dr. Sunita Krishnan. She is the Deputy Director at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, works a lot on planning in their strategy planning and management team. And she's a social epidemiologist by profession and has nearly 20 years of experience in conducting research and engaging policymakers on health and social equity in India. She has the dream of strengthening the data ecosystem in the country, whether it is about initiating innovations, creating a dialogue on data quality, as we are all here, because she once thought that by having a dialogue, that's where we can actually come to an understanding of what steps do we need to take for improving the data quality, or even promoting the use of data in terms of when an institution uses it, or individuals or the users uses it effectively. So, and her passion comes from the fact that a robust, regular availability of high quality data and its effective use can actually accelerate the sustainable development goals globally. So over to you, Dr. Sunita Krishnan. We'd like to hear your perspective on how, what steps, and are we in the right direction at the moment?
Great, thank you so much for that kind introduction, and hello everyone. So my dream and many of the ideas that I'm going to be speaking about are very much influenced by my team and many of the wonderful colleagues that I work with. I see that my colleague Priya Nanda is also in the session, as well as many of the folks, in fact, all of you who are on this panel are individuals and work with institutions that I've certainly learned a lot from. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and I do not have slides, so I'm going to just kind of share some of my thoughts and ideas and perspectives with you. At the Gates Foundation, we have a strong belief in the idea of knowledge having the power to transform the world for the better. And knowledge, where does knowledge come from? One of the sources of knowledge is from data that get produced through research of the kind that my fellow panelists have described. And research, helps us to understand where and what the problems are, and helps us drive action, and also helps us learn how to have impact through action. And all of this sounds great in theory, but making this happen, unlocking the power and potential of data to become knowledge and then to drive impact oriented action, is a work in progress. It's, as we've heard today, it's really hard to produce good data and evidence, and it's really hard to translate those data into knowledge for action, particularly in the field of human development and delivery systems. And this is where, I think we're grappling with problems that are truly complex. Many of the problems that we're working on, particularly in the health sector, but not only in the health sector and in the development sector more broadly, are multifactorial in causation. So the root causes of the outcomes we're trying to improve and the processes of change that help that improvement happen, they relate to each other in ways that are not linear and that are not readily predictable through many of the statistical methods that we use. And I think that's a really fundamental problem. So it's not just about generating good data, but the conversion of that data into knowledge is really a challenging activity. I was really intrigued by a recent report from the Alliance for Health Policy and Systems Research on learning systems. And in that report, they've underscored that better outcomes, particularly health outcomes, are achieved when health and human development policy and delivery systems iteratively learn, adapt, and improve. And so I think the key challenge that my colleagues and I think are grappling with is how do we contribute to evolving the data system and ecosystems in India in such a way that we can actually, as a community, iteratively learn, adapt, and improve our policies and programs. And I think to do this, to get closer to this, there are some challenges that we will need to address. And let me start with, so there's kind of 3 challenges I'll briefly talk about. One has to do with the design and execution issues that all of the panelists have really talked about, but I want to stretch the lens a little bit, or stretch the interpretation. First and foremost, I think we need to zoom out in terms of the kinds of data we're talking about. I think on the panel today, we have pretty much exclusively talked about quantitative data, primarily data coming from surveys, and to some extent, administrative data. But in fact, we need many kinds of data in order to make sense of the problems that we're trying to solve. And so I think we really need to push the data, discussions around the data ecosystem and issues of data quality beyond just, survey data, but also to look at really what I would call epistemic fluency, which is, we need to start to really think about both theoretical diversity and methodological diversity. And we need to think about data quality from the perspective of many different kinds of data that we need. And so, with regards to that, let me give you one example. When we're talking about family planning and increases in the use of, we've seen the latest NFHS, both increases in the use of traditional methods as well as the increase in the use of modern methods. And there may be various reasons why that's happening. without really accompanying those kinds of survey data along with deep ethnographic research, we're not going to really be able to convert those data and those insights into real knowledge, right? So I think we need to ensure that we are doing that deeper ethnographic work, the qualitative research, which in turn will also help us rethink the kinds of questions we're asking. So now they talked about even that simple question around assessing women's employment or women's economic activities. That insight around how do women define and report on their economic activities, I think we will get a much richer insight if we actually spend time engaging in participant observation in that case, doing deeper qualitative work. It will actually enable us to craft both better survey questions, but also be able to bring sort of more lived experiences and the ability to better interpret those quantitative data. In addition, I think so that's sort of one set of issues. And I think when it comes to qualitative data, the challenges and debates around data quality become they're also a complicated set of issues there. And I think we do not discuss sufficiently the issues around high quality qualitative data in the Indian context. And I think we would really benefit from doing so. The second challenge that we see is the issue of fragmentation of data producers, as well as different kinds of data and data users. We're all working in different silos, data reside in different kinds of institutions and repositories.
Yes, right.
And there's very little dialogue and integration, or very little synthesis or triangulation that we're doing. So individual studies are stood up as the truth, but then they can be countered by many other studies and different kinds of truth. And this goes also to the issue of trust, right? I think it's very, very important, given that we're working on multifactorial complex issues, that we also start to think about how we can reassemble ourselves in terms of teams of researchers crossing disciplinary boundaries and crossing institutional boundaries and crossing roles. So part of our dream is to have data collaboratives where institutions like IIPS, NCAR, NIMS, those who are close to policymakers, decision makers like MOSPI, we actually all come together on platforms where we engage with different kinds of data, we integrate data, and we run sprints and rallies to answer policy relevant questions. And I think that act of coming together in the form of data collaboratives, research networks, etc., can also go a long way in terms of building trust and understanding. And in the context of the pandemic, I think we were really forced in some respects to do exactly that, because we didn't have the luxury of time, which we often do, to sit in our institutions and in our academic silos to just do the work that we are used to doing, right? In the context of the pandemic, we needed insights rapid, quick, because the situation was so dynamic as well. And Priya and I helped to coalesce a network of research organizations, and Sonalde was and NCAR were participants of that, called CoreNet. And I think it was really an exciting time, because we came together, we did rapid peer reviews of each other's surveys, we collaborated on developing or aligning on measurements that we would use, we shared results in a rapid fashion, we helped each other interpret those results, etc. I think where we haven't quite made much progress is the connections across the data users, or the data producers and the data users. I think there's a real need for more platforms where we as researchers can engage with decision makers and understand the kinds of questions and dilemmas that they're grappling with, so that we can then produce the kinds of data as well as evidence and knowledge that can help them answer those complex questions and make difficult decisions. with that, let me just pause and hand it
Yeah.
back to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sunita. I think you said it rightly that unless we have this group of like-minded institutions and those who are closely connected with the policy sector come together to work on the data and understanding the data, what data is required, how is it used, that is the time then when the quality is going to also be addressed at the same time. And all points are well said. What I'm going to do is I'm looking at the time and we are just about less than 15 minutes now. So I'll skip my set of questions and then let the audience ask the question. Maybe I've been seeing a lot of back and forth that's happening in chat. May I request Priya to ask any specific question that you have with, to any of the panelists? Please go ahead.
Thanks for giving me an opportunity, Niranjan. I really enjoyed the panel. I don't have specific questions. I think the gamut of issues have been covered. The one that I know that I have felt a lot of despair about is when I am in the field and women say, so what is going to happen with this data? What's going to change? And you kind of say, oh, you know, this is to inform government policies and programs and we'll do this. But at the heart of your, you know, hearts of heart, you know, this is going to be slow. So imagine if that's how you feel. The interviewer who's trying to be persuasive and has to finish a schedule and finish maybe 4 schedules in a day is trying to be motivating. But even the interviewer may not be so persuasive or motivated. Even the respondent, the fatigue also comes from today my house has been marked for this survey. 3 months later, it was something on malaria. Then it may be AES. I keep responding to questions, but nothing really changes in my life. So does that sense of despair affect data quality as well? I mean, it's kind of much more at a very deep emotional level. I sometimes have felt a lot of dishonesty in reading that informed consent statement and trying to be convincing that this is what's going to happen once you tell us what we want to know.
Very true, very true. So may I request Professor Gulati, I think you have some questions which you have shared. Please go ahead and ask. And may I request also those who are asking questions to be very brief so that we can have more questions answered by the panelists. Over to you, Professor Gulati. Thank you.
Thank you, Niranjan. Well, I really enjoyed listening to all the panelists, first of all. And I do agree with Sunita Krishnan that we are all working in silos and we need a kind of institutional, interactions, etc. And also researchers because they can be relooked at. And then probably we have talked a lot about the parameters of data quality in terms of coverage, in terms of accuracy, timeliness, everything. But the threats to data quality, partly which has been, touched by James because he was on the consumer side earlier. Now he's on the producer side. So he has the advantage of both the side. So James, he touched on the length of the questionnaire and then he also talks about the sensitive, kind of data on sexual violence, sexual behavior, physical violence. Even the data which we have been collecting on physical and sexual violence, I find that it is getting enjoined. This is what me and Mari, we just talked about it way back. So I don't know whether the NFHS 5 is going to give this data on physical violence and sexual violence separately or not. Now, coming to the, kind of validation check, because the first thing which is being asked, and I'm telling my experience in planning commission also, when I went for evaluation of the NRHM and covered all the kind. First question which was asked by Montek and Aluwalia, he was chairing the session, is on the validation of the data. On the validation of the data, frankly speaking, because HMIS data and MCDS data, about which probably Vishnu Rao also talked about, we had provided almost 48 to 52 validation checks in the HMIS data. But on the lighter note to Sonal Desai, let me tell you, if we give more training, to our data producers, let me tell you, training to ANMs or ASHAs or data entry operators, are data managers at the PSC level who are, providing data on the, both MCTS and etc., because that is beneficiary based and this is facility based. If you give more data, probably sometimes they take you away from the reality, because they will put all kind of validation checks, they will put all zeros, blanks, we put all kind of constraints. They will just try to put in something, So too much of training to these data producers sometimes takes you away from that is on the lighter side of the note, because that is non-sampling error. I don't want to, we have got a lot of questions on that, but I think that was thing. But basically when I'm talking, because even Arindam also talked about that when you're going for validation of the data and any kind of, statistics which you're trying to bring out of your survey data, you have to, for validation, you have to compare it with the administrative data. And he was putting a caution to us that we should not compare, survey data with the, kind of administrative data, because that is the first thing for any kind of large survey or any kind of evaluation study or any kind which is based on survey. That is the first thing which is going to be asked to us. So despite providing all those kind of, quality checks, taking care of sampling errors, of course, we can take care of, as James rightly said, but non-sampling errors, when you're talking about whether it is pre or during collection or post collection at the analysis kind of data. So you have to, make some such kind of thing. And one more, because this was on the, kind of comparison of survey with the administrative data. So you have to have, some kind of benchmark. We don't have any kind of design effect. If it is some newer study, newer survey, we don't have any kind of, impression about the design effect, which we can take into it. We can take care of the significance or margin of error and level of significance, but design effect, we do not know. Even NFHS 1, 2, 3, 4, we have never come out with the design effect, frankly speaking. So these are just some of my queries and questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. So maybe we can take 2 more questions and then I'll give time to the panelists, because I think there is only 6 minutes left. So Professor Unisa, over to you. Can you unmute? Yeah, go ahead.
We need to think about modular approach, not only for domestic violence, for other sections also, to reduce the fatigue among the respondent as well as the interviewers. This is one point. The second one is we need to generate data users, knowledge, and all those things in the language which they can understand, not in the language which is statistician prefer to give. The third point is about the pre-coded questions. When we have pre-coded question, investigators are converting the response of the respondent into that categories. So we need to explain them very well. What do we want to collect under this category, that category? Unless and until we explain to them, they will fill it up anywhere. We have found this in government facilities. Maybe they will fill it up PSC somewhere, DSC somewhere, something different things. The fourth point is about the use of short form. What I have found using RTI, 3 groups have responded in 3 different manners. Reproductive tract infection, somebody had said. Respiratory tract infection, somebody had said. Right to information, somebody had said. So 3 groups have given 3 answers. So as far as possible in questionnaire, we should not use short form. And the language should be simple as well as according to the local surrounding. And for one more example, Zajgi, Japa, and all those things were used in different questionnaires, and people have responded. They were not able to understand what is Japa. So if you go and ask what is Japa, they will not understand. So language should also be kept in mind when we are asking questions. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks so much. Anyone else have any question? The last question.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah, go ahead. Sir. Please go ahead.
Yeah. There seems to be a type of experimental ground for many areas of sensitive nature to be surveyed only in developing countries. For example, do you have questions of DHS type on domestic violence, sexual things and other things, in the developed countries? Why they don't have that? Why do you have gender empowerment programs only in developing countries fueled by these surveys? I would like to know whether, the developing countries become a target of these type of programs. Second thing is, I think many times surveys have worked against the improvement of administrative statistics, like civil registration. Sample registration system was started in 1967 for 10 years, because within that time they thought civil registration would come. Now 77, after almost 45 years, they are still continuing with great vigor. So any survey started with a government system cannot be closed down, It has to be continued ad infinitum, because you cannot dispense with government workers. So my feeling is there is a built-in mechanism to perpetuate the surveys, and to work that in a way works against the administrative statistics. So many questions that are imposed on developing countries cannot be asked in developed countries.
Sure.
I just want to stop here.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I think we have hardly 3 minutes left, and it will close the session automatically, it looks like. So maybe a quick rapid response from Arindam first, and then I'll go to the next speakers. 30-second response, please.
I have already said that essence of data quality, few parameters we need to understand. Reduce the respondent time, reduce the questionnaire size, and use of technology as best we can.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Professor James, any quick final response?
I think there's a couple of, I don't think that it will stop at 7 o'clock. Don't worry about it. Even after 7 o'clock, we have the possibilities of informal talk. That is what IUSSP has been informed. So that part is fine.
Okay, then it is all right. Because I'm just getting a message from Nancy that
no, that the translation, etc. will stop. But anyway, all of us are Indians, so there's not much problem for us translation.
That's good to know.
Yeah. No, these question. One of the question is that whether why should respondent answer that? I think Priya was asking a question. Why should a respondent at all answer this question by staying for such a long time in a lengthy questionnaire? But often our experience is that respondents are much simpler than the researchers think. They really wanted to answer these questions. That is what our experience always shows. Because primarily, maybe NFHS has also biomarkers in it. There are also certain some measurement is told to them on the various the parameters. So that way they may have some interest in it. But keeping apart, but even otherwise, we found that if you are able to have a good, if you go to a village and have a real connection which has been established between them, I think it is possible for us to have even a lengthy questionnaire. That may not be able. The question is always, it is better to have a short questionnaire. There's no doubt about it. At the same time, all of us know the demand for the information, because whenever an NFHS discussion goes on, everyone starts with adding questionnaire, because I know this country has a huge demand for it. This Professor Srinivasan is right. Ideally we should have gone for the administrative statistics. But if Professor Srinivasan, we should also understand, if you really look at the money which are spent for the last 50 years on the administrative data, improving the quality of administrative data, as well as improving the quality of CRS data, perhaps the survey expenditure will be a meager amount of what administrative data. I am not telling that administrative data should not be improved, but somehow, even with despite all our efforts, but still we are not able to get a good quality data. We need to really strive for it. We need to make efforts for it, I agree. But at the same time, we are perhaps spending much less money on the survey data, frankly speaking. But that cost is going to go up. I don't think that the current cost of India will stay the same level. In the future, it might go up. So we need to really think about it. And the last one is on the design effect and all those. I think that is already answered. So these are my simple answers to this. questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Although it's a kind of debate between how much money do we spend actually on improving the quality of data per se versus the actual data production. I think there is also some sort of imbalance in that proportion. It's something that I think it's a debate that we don't have actually the cost estimates from that perspective as well. Maybe should I go to Professor Sonalde for a quick response?
I will reduce the audience fatigue by yielding my time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great.
So, anything from you, Dr. Vishnu?
Yeah, actually, no, most of the speakers have covered everything and they also answered. But I take the point of Dr. Sunita Krishnan. Actually, we are not putting much effort on qualitative data. Yes, she is right. And probably Dr. Niranjan and we have to discuss about that. And we also, next process, we also should discuss about the qualitative data. And we are also actually, shall I take another 30 seconds?
Yeah, almost like.
Yeah, we are also trying to, with using the artificial intelligence, we are also trying for the natural language enhancement and how to capture the errors and all that we'll discuss later whenever we find the time. Thank you very much. Excellent speakers, excellent audience.
Dr. Vishnu Rao,
Yeah.
just
Final word from Dr. Sunita.
Okay, great. So building on what Vishnu said, I hope the next panel on this issue that you host will have methodological diversity, epistemic fluency, as I said. Second, I also hope we really struggle with this issue of, quality of knowledge production and use, which I think is also related to data quality. And goes to the issue that Priya raised. I think we should be far more conflicted and worried about how effectively we are actually producing knowledge for action based on the data that we're generating.
Great point. Thanks so much. I think I've learned a lot from the session today, and as many, I feel it's the same for many. Thanks so much for giving your perspectives and stimulating the conversation around the data quality. And I think these are the kind of conversations that we need to have beyond the conferences and meetings, whether it is one-to-one or what Dr. Sunita said about in a coalition format, in groups of the institutions coming together and talking about the data quality. And that's when we can make a real difference and have a strong data ecosystem in the country. We made a lot of initiatives, the initiatives that we heard from Dr. Arindam, Dr. Vishnu, Dr. James, Dr. Sonalde. These were excellent initiatives, and we hope that we'll continue to make the investments on data quality going forward. Thanks so much. Thanks once again. Bye-bye.
Thank you.